This is Sony's new ULT Field 5, and this is the ULT Field 3. Now, ULT stands for Ultimate, basically, and it's part of Sony's For the Music sub-brand. And apparently, all of their speakers, all of their kind of Bluetooth portable speakers going forward are going to be the ULT range, basically. That's marketing, that's branding, etc., whatever. However, this is still Sony, and I'm a massive fan of Sony, and all I want from them is speakers which you can crank up. They're very clear, they're loud, and they don't flap. They don't distort and do that horrible thing that certain other Bluetooth speakers do. If they can do that at a decent price, then you've got me. And we are getting near the summer, which means you're probably thinking about buying one of these speakers yourself, or maybe something else from a different manufacturer. There's lots of choice. Let's get into it. Now, these speakers do share some specs, as you'd expect. However, there are differences, obviously. Let's start with the Field 3. So this comes in 3 colours, black, white and forest grey. It's got 1 woofer and 1 tweeter. It's got this ULT button, which I'll come on to later, with on and off settings, basically. It's got 24 hours of battery life, and a 10-minute charge gives you 2 hours of playback. You can make calls through this as well, and it costs £180 in the UK. The Field 5 is bigger, obviously, but also it has 2 colours, black and white. It has 1 X-balanced speaker unit, 2 tweeters, and again the ULT button, but with 2 settings, basically, well, 3 settings: off, ULT 1 and ULT 2, which I'll come on to later. This one also has LED lighting, which flashes away to your music, and it's got 25 hours of battery life with a 10-minute charge, delivering 100 minutes of playback. It also has a 10-band EQ, and it costs £260. In terms of the similarities between these two, they both have a frequency response of 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. They've both got passive radiators, one on either side. They've both got sound field optimization, which basically tunes the sound based on the environment to make it sound as clear and as big as possible. They've both got Party Connect, which means you can connect up to 100 speakers in the same system. They've both got IP67 water and dust resistance. The ULT Field 3 does have shock-proofing built in as well. It's fine. And they both have a detachable shoulder strap with a very clever mechanism for attaching it, which I'll show you in a second. That's it, basically, in terms of specs and pricing. There's another speaker in this range, which is the ULT Tower 9, which is 850 quid and has caster wheels. I didn't get that one into review because, for obvious reasons. There's also a brand new app called the Sony Sound Connect, which is basically just one app. Instead of having loads of different Sony apps for your headphones and your speakers, we now have just one. Anyway, let's get into the design and the sound of these speakers. Before we crack on, just a very quick word from today's sponsor, and something you've probably noticed in recent videos: this ring. This is the Ringcon Gen 2, and it's the first smart ring that can monitor sleep apnea, which is very impressive when you consider how small it is. It's only 2mm thick, it weighs 2 to 3 grams, and it still somehow gets 10 to 12 days of battery life. I've worn it for a month now, and I think I've charged it once or twice in that time, which for a smart ring is very impressive. And that's partly down to this fantastic charging case, which holds over 150 days of power. If you want something even lighter, they've got the Gen 2 Air version that was launched recently. Basically, guys, if you want lightweight health tracking without screens, there's a link and code down below in the description. I've not used a smart ring that's as good as this in terms of battery life, feedback, and just ease of use. That is what these things should be about. Go and check it out. Let's talk design, and the Field 3 and Field 5 are fairly unique looking because normally Bluetooth speakers look like this. So the Beats Pill and the JBL Flip 7 are these kind of tube things. These aren't. These are more rectangular, more not squared off, but they're just unique looking. I love it. They're very clearly Sony. In terms of build quality, they are fantastic. As soon as you get these out the box, you just think, yes, I've spent good money here. And crucially, you just have this immediate reassurance that they'll put up with quite a bit of stick. So if you're throwing them into the back of your car, if you're at the beach, if you're having a barbecue in British summertime weather, which basically means it will definitely rain at some point, you won't worry about these speakers. And that's all we need from Bluetooth speakers these days. The buttons are fantastic as well. They feel great. We've got the right amount of buttons as well. So play controls, Bluetooth, connect for connecting 100 speakers if you want to. The ULT button, which I'll come on to in a moment. Round the back, we've got a little flap here here, which on the Field 3 gives us the USB-C power connection, charging connection, which you can, by the way, plug in and charge and play at the same time, which is good. But you also have this battery button, which is very handy because you press it and it tells you how much battery is remaining. The slightly weird thing about it is that if you press and hold it, it turns on what they call, what is it? Battery care mode, which basically limits the charging to 90% to preserve the battery. That's nice, but I just don't quite understand why it's given as a user feature. It's a bit weird. But anyway, on the Field 5, it's slightly different. We have the same battery button, we have the USB-C power connection as well, but we have two other buttons. So we have a light button, and the light button, as you would guess when you press that, turns on the flashy RGB lights on this speaker. They flash to the music. You can use the app to change the colors that are flashing. You can pick a custom color if you want to. It's pretty cool. The other thing we have on here is audio in. So if you're a DJ or if you just want to connect an external audio source to your Field 5, you can do that on this big one. I've been doing that with my little DJ setup, and it's a very nice little speaker for that. Great for house parties and that sort of thing. The other thing that is very, very cool is the included shoulder strap. This is it. You don't have to pay any extra for it, and the way it attaches to this is absolutely ingenious. We have these two rubberized things here which you pull out and flip around like that. That then gives you these two little kind of fabric things which you slot these hooks into. So this goes into this side here. This one goes into that side there. That gives us the kind of strap, and I can put that round. And look, guys, I'm a 44-year-old dad. I'm not going to be walking down Leamington High Street wearing this like this, because no one needs to hear Dark Side of the Moon in its entirety. That's for my listening pleasure only. But if you're younger and cooler than me, this probably means something. But the fact you get that with both of these speakers, happy days. Another quality of life benefit is the fact they both have auto off, so if you leave them unattended, they'll switch themselves off and you won't lose any battery. So very easy to live with, very well designed, and lots of peace of mind. What about the sound? There are three things I want from a Bluetooth speaker when it comes to audio. The first thing is volume. They have to be loud. The second thing is clarity. They have to be clear as that volume increases. And the third thing is that they are not allowed to have flappy bass. As you crank that speaker up, you don't want the bass to be doing this kind of blah, blah, blah. It's horrible. If you've ever bought a cheap Bluetooth speaker, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The good news is the Field 3 and the Field 5 nail all three of those things. They are very loud, they're very clear, there's no flappage, the bass does not distort on these. Now they do that thing where as you increase the volume, the bass is very clearly being dropped off a little bit. A lot of car stereos do this as well, but Sony is definitely doing something with the EQ as you turn them up. Now these aren't intended to be audiophile home speakers. It's not like a pair of Kef speakers that you put on your mantelpiece and really listen to every detail. These are for putting into a room, into the garden, wherever, and just cranking out some tunes. That's what they're about, and they nail that process perfectly. In terms of differences, there's only one really, which is the fact that the Field 5 is just a bigger, louder version of the Field 3. It's as simple as that. Yes, it has lights and stuff on it as well, and it has that audio in, which is fantastic, but it's just a bigger sounding speaker, which, if you want more volume and you want more bass and you want more everything, get the Field 3. Sorry, the Field 5. Okay, I've delayed it long enough. I need to do a sound test, because if I don't do a sound test, certain people will shout at me in the comments and it's really annoying. Most of you get this, I think, but just in case you don't, what you're about to hear is not representative of what these two speakers sound like, because I know most of you know this, but some people seem to not fully understand it. I put this in front of this camera, I play a tune, it goes into that mic, which immediately colours the sound. That then goes into our editing suite, which colours the sound a little bit, although we won't process it, we'll leave it as raw as we can. That then gets exported and uploaded to YouTube. I have no idea what YouTube does to the audio, but they will compress it. They'll compress the entire video. Things will happen, which completely changes the sound again. Then you'll listen to it on a pair of AirPods or your phone speaker or whatever. What you're about to hear isn't how these sound, but you want me to do it, I know, so I'll do it. And what I'll do to be really nice and really do the right thing here is I'll play the Alt thing, so the Alt setting of both of these on and off, and then on this one the Alt 1 and Alt 2. Then I'll explain what Alt Ult means, basically. Here's the sound test. There you go, you've had your sound test. Now the Alt button is interesting because it's either on or off on the Field 3. If it's off, you just get standard bass response. If it's on, you just get more bass. It's as simple as that, it just increases the bass output. Now on the Field 5, they do have two settings on this one. One of them is called Deep Bass and the other one is called Attack Bass, and they make different noises. One thing about these speakers, particularly the Field 5, is the on and off sound is incredibly loud, which kind of proves it means business, but it can be a bit much. Okay, so the Alt button, this is it off at the moment. If I press it once, sorry, that's it off. That's deep bass. That's attack bass. Now, I've tested all three and off is still pretty bassy. You get a lot of bass out of it. The deep bass just increases the bass and attack bass just increases it a bit more. It still doesn't distort. I've not found any tracks that make this thing distort. Alt 1, the deep bass setting, and just Alt on this one. Those are the two settings that I defaulted to on both speakers, but it's nice to have that option. And it's very Sony. You know, having a bass button. Do you remember bass boost? That's given me memories of my childhood. It's very Sony to have a kind of bass boost button, and I love it. And this brings me on to my inevitable conclusion about the Field 3 and Field 5. These are two fantastic Bluetooth speakers. The Field 3 does have quite a bit of competition from the likes of Beats with the Beats Pill and also the JBL Flip 7. They're both cheaper and a bit smaller, but if you're a Sony person, you've made your mind up already, you're going with this. For me, the pick of the two is the Field 5, and that's mainly because my use case is having this in the garden, having it in the studio and doing my kind of little DJ sets that I've been finally getting back into. For me, that makes this the better speaker because it has the audio in, it's just got a bigger sound. However, if you're younger and cooler than me and you do fancy walking around with one of these strapped to yourself with the shoulder strap, I'd go for the Field 3. It's just a brilliant speaker that it sounds bigger than it is and it looks great. It's not too heavy. It's quite big, but you'd have the shoulder strap, wouldn't you? That's not a concern. Sorry, I am too old for some of this stuff. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about these new Alt speakers from Sony in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. It makes a massive difference. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, you know where it is. I'm off to take this one into the garden. It's raining, but who cares? To listen to some, well, it will be old music. It'll probably be Pink Floyd or something. Anyway, see you later.